Well, it's Thursday, and you all know what that means. That means once again we have TNA. As you know, it features a very interesting elimination match, which is the 8-4-1 elimination match. Who will be our number one contender to face Jordan Grace for the TNA Knockouts World title at Rebellion? We even have, of course, a dissension within the tag team division, except for certain tag teams that are dealing with certain things they're doing on their own. And of course, the main event features Chris Sabin versus Steve Macklin. And then we move along with Ring of Honor featuring various matches. We do have a proving ground match for the ROH Women's World title. We even have, of course, the World Television title defended. Kyle Fletcher defends it against, of course, Blake Christian. And we have plenty other things as well. And then, of course, we move on with, some news updates to give you guys updates what's been happening in the world of pro wrestling, such as what events the promotions are thrown out, who's booked, what matches are set. We have some interesting signees coming from TNA, and of course, some developments. We definitely going to be addressing what's been happening in the world of pro wrestling as we speak. So, let's get ready for another episode of Deleted Wrestle Zone.
Are you ready? Get up, get up! 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 Get up, get up!
Welcome everybody to Deleted Wrestle Zone, all things that is pro wrestling with AEW, NXT, New Japan Pro Wrestling, TNA, the National Wrestling Alliance, various promotions, wrestlers, matches, and championships. I am your host, Jay right here. So, if you are new to the channel, welcome. This is a channel where we do a lot of pro wrestling reviews from various promotions, not only here in the United States, but also in Japan, Mexico, Canada, Europe, the UK, anywhere in the world where pro wrestling is not as big, but it continues to grow. We also do discussion videos, talk about various topics such as the wrestlers themselves, the promotions, factions, storylines, whatever we want to talk about. We also do more news updates. If I'm unable to put it on this episode, I can put it on a separate video by itself. We also do real-timing news updates to keep you guys on alert if something interesting has happened in the world of wrestling that needs to be alerted for all of you. We also do the Unagi Sayaka Watch and various other cool things as well. So if you like what you see, please subscribe to us. So click on that subscribe button. You'll be getting a lot of daily reviews and other cool stuff on this channel as well. But if you like this episode, please give us a like on the like button or a nice comment in the description down below. Now, all introductions are set aside. I think it's time for me to enough with this chit chat. Let's begin with our very first review, and this is from TNA. Okay, so TNA, we opened up with a very interesting match. Now, this is a number one contendership for the TNA Knockouts World title in an 8-4-1 elimination match. Now, those who don't know what the 8-4-1 is, let me explain it to you so you can understand. The match will begin in an 8-person tag match, but in this case, it's an 8-women tag match in this one. Now, the team that's eliminated, the remaining 4 will be facing off each other, and only one will be left standing as the winner. So, since this is, of course, elimination match for the Knockouts World title to be the number one contendership, this is who they had. Masha Slamovich, Alicia Edwards, Jody Threat, and Havoc. As for the next team, we have Rosemary, Danny Luna, Zaya Brookside. Now, originally we were supposed to have Ash by Elegance in this one, but apparently she had a little boo-boo, got hurt herself, so she was replaced by Steph Delanders. So basically that took I don't know, it's more, but she decided to watch. We know that she was not happy with the results of watching the match between Jordan Grace and what's her name, and of course by Giselle Shaw. But she decided to stay. But the match itself was pretty good. It was very strong. But in the end, it was an inside cradle by Danny Luna onto Masha Slamovich that allowed her and the rest of her team to move on into the next phase of the elimination. However, Masha Slamovich took this very, very personally and attacked Luna and took her out. However, while the mayhem was happening in the ring, things got a little out of hand. Zaya Brookside, who was on the outside, was shoved to Ash by Elegance and all this, but the referee was thinking that Zaya Brookside was taken out by Ash Legends, so Ash decided was of course with her stooge evicted out. However, Steph Delanders was contending with Rosemary, but that piece of garbage, the so-called Death King of the Death Matches, or the Deathmatch King, attacked Rosemary with the radio silence, allowing for Steph Delanders. We should have known that this was going to happen, but it did. It turns out they are trying to conquer everything. We know that at some point, we know that Matt Cardona probably would love to get an opportunity of the TNA World Title. So that's something we could see down the line. But we'll see what happens up there. But however, Steph Delanders took the advantage and applied a TKO onto Rosemary to become our number one contender. Now, it appears drama has now built up within the Rascals and Steve Macklin. Last week we saw that there was a bit of a misfire by Macklin to the Rascals. The Rascals left, leaving him by himself. But however, he bumped into Chris Sabin, who is also dealing with his own personal issue. So instead of taking it out on Macklin, he decided, you know what, I'm going to take my frustrations out on you, but not out here, in the ring. So the match was set. But the obvious question is, how does the members of Time Machine feel? Well, Alex Shelley has like his own thing going around. You know, he hasn't been the same since losing the TNA World Title. Well, I don't blame him, but it appears that that's what's happening. But however, they're not the only tag team that's been dealing with their own stuff. Apparently, the ABC are also in that state. Now, remember, recently we did see Ace Austin and Chris Bay in one-on-one action. But it's like right now, Ace Austin saying, look, we need to also prioritize as well to get the tag team. So I wouldn't be surprised if those two somehow uh, broke apart, but we'll see. Now in the ring, the grizzled young vets are in the ring, acting like a bunch of crybabies after losing their tag match. They called out Diener, but Diener decided to take matters in his own hands, so the match ended up being a 2-on-1. You could say it's a foolish thing for him to do things on his own. Well, it did, because they tried the GYT, and just like that, James, James Drake pinned Diener, and that was pretty much it, how it ended. Now, Gia Miller conducts an interview with none other than the number one contender for the TNA World Title at Rebellion, Nick Menes. Now he knows what goes on. He knows that the type of person moves. But however, Alex Shelley was a little talking to him, so he decided to offer himself a bit of a warm-up match before that. So basically, Nick Menes took on upon himself and said, "Why not? Let's do it." Excuse me. Anyway, back in the ring, Josh Alexander decided to put out a promo. So he, as you know, has one thing in his mind. Now, we do know that he has the world title that's on his goal. But however, he hasn't forgotten what happened last time when it came to Alex Hammerstone. So he decided to address the whole thing. And then he said that he and Santino Marella set up an open contract to Hammerstone to challenge him. But however, Tracy Williams decided to step up. So, of course, Josh Alexander was going to take up in the off. But, however, this was a pretty good match because it was exactly like a technical aspect wrestling that we were probably thinking. You would think that we're going to see a bit more of what Tracy Williams can do. If you guys know who he is, then you guys know what I'm talking about. But in the end, it was, of course, Josh Alexander with the C4 spike. And just like that, it was over. But as soon as the match was over, we did see that Josh Alexander was praising Tracy Williams for his effort to take him out. However, they were both viciously attacked by Hammerstone, and of course Hammerstone with his with Alexander's headgear as a trophy, as always. So we'll see what happens until then. Now, as you know, last week we have a brand new number one contender for the X Division title. But however, Ali was not too keen on the idea about having Jake something be the number one contender for two reasons. He was telling this to the director of authority, Santino Marella, saying, "Should there be limits on this?" But Santino's like, "Hey, that's the whole point. There's no limits. I mean, who could forget about Samoa Joe, who is a big dude? He had no limits. I mean, I like how they referenced that. So basically, he's saying, look, that's the past. This is the future. I'm so concerned." But he also, it's because J- uh, Ali wants to change how the X division is. That there should be a a limitation on the weight, but however he decided. But of course, Rhino's mentioned, and Ali was like saying all this nonsense about him, and then Santino's like, "Ooh." And of course, he asked that he wants a match against him, but Ali was thinking this is about the X Division title. Nope, this has nothing to do with that. It's about him getting his ass kicked. So Santino made it happen. So, I mean, Ali should have been more careful what he said. Now, our next match, we have Mike Bailey taking on Eddie Edwards. And of course, that pencil neck Brian Myers was there, and so is Eddie's main squeeze. Alicia was there too. Now, of course, you would say that it was going to be a good match, but of course, the system was going to get involved with, of course, Alicia distracting the ref. Then, of course, Myers trying to get involved, but thank God for Trent Seven for knocking him out. But it wasn't enough. Alicia once again interfered, and then, of course, allowing for of Eddie Edwards applied the Boston Knee Party, claiming that the system works in their favor. But sooner or later, the system is going to crash. Now, Frankie Kazarian, as you know, has some unfinished business with none other than Eric Young. So the challenge will take place in Rebellion for Full Metal Mayhem. And of course, Chris Bay confronted him. So basically, there's some issues between those two, and I'm sure we'll see that at soon enough. AJ Francis and Rich Swann decided to talk about the actions of what happened last week when 2 weeks ago, when Rich Swann turned on Joe Hendry. So his reasons were that, of course, he felt that Joe Hendry stole his thunder and all this other stuff. So we'll see where that leads us. But of course, they're happy they got what they wanted. But sooner or later, Joe Hendry will get his revenge on them in the best possible way. Now, Laredo Kid, we haven't seen him for quite some time, so he is now back. Apparently, he was injured for quite some time, and he thought this thing would have been the end of his career. But originally in Sacrifice, he was supposed to face against Crazy Steve for the TNA Digital Media title. But now that he's back, he's aiming for it. So we'll see where that takes us from here on out. Now, our main event is Steve Maclin versus Chris Sabin. I thought this match was pretty good, but luckily there were no outside interference or anything, so everything went smoothly. However, Steve Maclin did his job by taking out Chris Sabin with the KIA and allowing him to pick up an amazing victory. So I don't know where Steve Maclin is going, but we do know he has one thing in mind, is to reclaim the TNA World title. So that could happen at any given time. But for right now, I believe we'll just see where this leads us with Maclin. So I think that's pretty much it with TNA. Let's move on with Ring of Honor. Okay, Ring of Honor. Now, our opening match is a proving ground match for the ROH Women's World Title. We have Athena taking on Nikita. Now, I cannot recall if I ever seen Nikita or not in the Independents, but I can tell you that this match ended in Athena's favor when she applied a submission. However, like any other match we've seen with Athena, here we go again. So she decided to try to beat her up, but however, luckily, Holy Sheeta showed up. So that is a very interesting thing. However, Sheeta actually later on did explain why she decided to make the challenge for the ROH Women's World title. Well, that's obvious. Now, we know for months that Athena has always talked about better competition. Well, it seems that Hikaru Shida thought the same thing too. So they're both thinking alike. So basically, she's already been a 3-time AEW Women's World Champion. So there is the possibility she could be actually becoming the next ROH Women's World Champion. So we could actually see that. So we just gotta wait until we get to Supercard of Honor. Now, during an interview with Renee Paquette, she interviews Lee Johnson. My bad, Lee Johnson. As you know, Lee Johnson has been on quite a roll, undefeated so far. But there were many questions that asked. Recently, we know that Ethan Page made a play for the World Television title before, but that hasn't been gone recently. We haven't seen Ethan Page for a couple weeks now, but it appears now the focus is on Lee Johnson. So he is calling his shot at Supercard of Honor for the World Television title. But however, he is also going to observe the main event that features Kyle Fletcher defending his belt against Blake Christian. Now, our next match, we have Cole Carter and Griff Garrison taking on a couple of guys named Cass Jordan and Victor Costello. Well, I can tell you this match ended with, of course, with Griff and Cole winning the match by, Griff pinning Jordan, and that was pretty much it. Our next match, we have Nick Comoroto taking on Dalton Castle. As you know, Dalton Castle is still in a bit of a, he's dealing with the fact that the boys were eaten by a bear thanks to Tail Valkyrie and Johnny TV. But however, he was able to overcome Nick Comoroto by applying the Batarang, and that was pretty much it. However, Tail Valkyrie comes out, decided to get in his head. As you know, they've been trying to retrain the boys to play along to Johnny TV, but however, the the blame decided to be on Dalton Castle because they picked up their bad habits. They refuse to acknowledge Johnny TV and Tail Valkyrie, and of course, Tail Valkyrie is blaming Dalton Castle for what happened to them, but Dalton Castle will not take that lightly. But unfortunately, it was a sneak attack by Tail Valkyrie and her husband Johnny TV to take it out. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's going to be their feud all the way to, of course, Supercard of Honor. So we'll just gotta wait and see. Our next match, we have Brandon Cutler, Colt Cabana taking on Rex Lawless and Bryce Donovan. I thought it was a pretty fun match. I mean, recently we have been seeing Brandon Cutler and Colt Cabana on social media doing these crazy things where they're just dancing and having a bit of fun. I thought it was a pretty good thing. But seeing them more often, it would be interesting. But they were able to pick up a win after, of course, Cutler pinned Donovan, and just like that, it was over. Our next match, we have Top Flight and Action Andretti taking on a couple local wrestlers named, they're known as KPK, Aram, Ahmed, and Abdul. So I don't know much about them, but of course, this match was definitely going to be in favor with Top Flight and Action Andretti because many people are probably hoping that they could win the trios belts or something, either in ROH or in AEW. But they were able to pick up the win thanks to Action Andretti with the leg split moonsault onto Abu, and just like that, they win their match. Our next match, we have Diamante versus Kiera Hogan. So I thought this match was very interesting. Now we know that this dates back all the way to the ROH Women's World Title Tournament, and of course this match was going to be. But however, you know how vicious Diamante could be, but Kiera Hogan is looking for some little payback, and that's exactly what she did in this match when she applied a snap suplex, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, she gets her bit of retribution. Now, since Ring of Honor is in Canada, we have JD Drake taking on a Canadian wrestler, and you guys know him, Evil Uno. So basically, he was going to be the crowd favorite. So of course, this was going to be Evil Uno's moment, and exactly, it ended with him winning the match, applying the cradle onto JD Drake, and just like that, it was over. Now our next match is, of course, our main event, the ROH World Television title, Blake Christian versus Kyle Fletcher. The match was intensified. Of course, that Blake Christian, he was bringing out this attitude recently, since and other promotions like GCW into this. Now, you would think that he would be clever enough to try to pick up a win, but however, it was Kyle Fletcher with his killer instincts that allowed him to win this match, and that's exactly what happened. So, however, when the match was over, while Kyle Fletcher retained the belt, he sees his opponent for Super Card of Honor, Lee Johnson, and that's going to be interesting to watch. So, I'm looking forward to that. So, I think that's pretty much it right now with all the reviews. I believe it's time to end this whole thing with our last and final thing to do, and that is news updates. So, welcome to our news update. So, let's get started. Let's begin with our promotions for their upcoming events. Now, I did not mention this when I was reviewing Ring of Honor. I thought I should do it on this one. It was a surprising announcement for the Super Card of Honor, and it was told that this talent of Stardom will be participating at Super Card of Honor. They announced Mina Shirakawa, Maika from EXV. They team up with Mei Sita. They take on Queen's Quest members Sayakami Tani and Azumi, but they will team up with, of course, Tam Nakano. So that's a very interesting thing to watch. So I think this match is going to be killer. I think many fans are looking forward to this at Super Card of Honor. Now, interesting developments in the Joshi world, much like what's going to happen in Philly. As you know, Spark Joshi Puroresu of America has announced for their Trailblazer event that takes place on the 7th of April. Masha Slamovich will be there, and so will, of course, Rina Yamashita. So I'm excited at those two. However, a match has been announced, and I think this is one that many people don't want to miss. Aja Kong teams up with Tam Nakano. So that's right, the cutest in the universe. Tam Nakano teams up with the legend Aja Kong, and they will face against Mina Shirakawa and Janai Kai. So I'm looking forward to that, but I'm sure Mina Shirakawa is gonna have a hard time taking on Aja Khan because she's a big individual. So we'll see where that leads. Now, Prestige Wrestling. Now, I failed to to mention this to all of you. We do have a brand new Prestige champion, and that is none other than former Dark Order member Alan Angels. That's right, Alan Angels is the new Prestige champion. He defeated Alex Shelley for the belt. However, he will defend his belt on May 16th at Alive or Just Breathing against his former teammate Evil Uno. So I'm kind of curious about that match. Now, GCW has announced for their upcoming event in Chicago, I believe, in Chicago. Take a picture on the 25th of May. 4 names have been mentioned for this event: Nick Gage, Mike Bailey, and of course the Los Desperados, Gringo Locos unit, and of course Eric Cannon. So that's going to be practically who's been signed. And then finally, we do have, of course, Australian promotion World Series Wrestling for their Most Wanted tour that takes place in June and by the end of June and the start of July. Jack Cartwheel will be participating in this tour, so good for him. I'm really happy for him. And okay, now we have some interesting signees that have been happening recently, and mostly coming from TNA. TNA has announced that Ace Austin has re-signed with TNA, so it's good for him. I'm really happy. AJ Francis, however, that's a different story. Says that he signed with TNA, but only for the remainder of 2024. So I don't know how this thing's going to end in 2024 with him. So we're going to see him throughout the rest of 2024. So very interesting to hear. Now, now for some interesting developments. Becky Lynch revealed to Fightful Select about Seth Rollins, about how he felt when CM Punk appeared, and this is what she had to say. And let me pull it up real quick. So this is what she has to say. The deal happened late, and then he had a match. He was working on his match all day, and he felt disrespectful with we think of ourselves. We are the universe. Everybody, nobody is going. You to disres I want to disrespect you, maybe feel disrespected. But nobody is intentionally going to. Let me disrespect this person, considering that you should take in account you should have told your top stars. So basically, it seems that no one was told. They were still blabbering about this. Yes, no one knew that Punk was coming. So yeah. But another thing has arisen regarding Becky Lynch. It turned out before she was signed with AEW, no, no, with WWE, she was intending to go to TNA. Now, you ask yourselves, why would she want with TNA? According to her, she said that she likes how the women's division was being treated. Now, I know some of you WWE loyalists will say, well, that's a little horse crap. Well, truth to be told, we've been hearing how the women's division is in TNA for years, how it was. Like, they treat them differently. So that's the main reason. And then, of course, she signed with WWE. So the rest is history. Now, Will Nightingale was on Fightful Select. She talked about something very interesting. Now, I need to ask you guys, do you think we should see it or not? So I'll leave that judgment to you. She said that she would like to see a women's Blood and Guts. We never seen that before, but I think I would buy that. But she also says that they should have a Continental title for the women's. I'm like, I mean, that is a good, excellent observation. I mean, she even recently talked there should be in a women's tag team titles for AEW. I mean, she has these interesting ideas. I mean, I'm all for it if they do decide the AEW women's tag team titles, but we'll see where that goes. But what do you guys think? Do you want to see a women's Blood and Guts and a women's Continental title? You tell me. Leave a comment down below and tell me what you think. Now, as you know, for an upcoming event for NXT, it will take place in June 4th at the UFC Apex. So that's going to be in a different facility. So that's interesting to hear. Now, interesting enough, this was announced regarding Vince McMahon. It appears that his name has been banned from being mentioned on WWE television. Now, I know there's been a lot of talk about Vince recently about the allegations, so it would make sense why it's happening. But yeah, um, we'll just see how that rolls up. And then finally, of course, we have Teddy Long, who had a very interesting thing that he had with Sporkita. Talked about John Laurinaitis, and apparently that he and John Laurinaitis were never a best of friends. And this is what he had to say about him. John Laurinaitis is one of the worst pieces of shit on this planet. He's a man that's gonna stop me from making a living because of the color of my skin, not because I was doing my job. So, I mean, we know that recently John Laurinaitis has been in the spot regarding of what happened with Vince. So I don't know if have a hard time believing, but if it is true, it probably would make sense. So we'll just see what happens. I'm thinking we're probably gonna hear from John Laurinaitis that all this from what Teddy Long would say is a bunch of lies, but we'll see. I mean, this is gonna be a very interesting war between them. So we'll see what happens. So I think that's pretty much it with all the reviews and of course with our news updates. I believe it's time to call it a day. All right. I hope everybody enjoys this episode. I'm looking forward to uh, for the next one, which is going to feature Rampage and NXT. I haven't decided yet if I was going to do another review before then, but I couldn't do that for this one due to the fact that I had some things I had to take care of. I had family coming over, but however, I got this one done. So we'll see what happens until then. I'm way behind on certain things. I'm considering dropping certain events to see how that goes, but time will tell. As you know, we're almost ending. Now, as we speak, we do have the upcoming Stardom shows. This will feature the last two featuring Mai Sakurai, Mirai, and Yuzuki before they leave Stardom. try to think of anything else. But yeah, so we'll see what happens throughout this entire week and the rest of the weekend, and we'll go from there. So until then, I will see you guys in the next DWZ time, same DWZ channel. I must bid all of you adieu. So goodbye, and have a nice day. Bang.